We are in our series of Cross-Examined, and I'm going to try not to stand in front of that. We've talked about people up until now, people that have met Jesus, talked with Jesus, needed something from Jesus, wanted Jesus. We talked about Nicodemus, and we talked about the rich young ruler. But this morning, we're going to talk about something entirely different. This man encountered Jesus in a way that is not usual. And I want to take the time to talk about the centurion this morning, the centurion at the cross. And it's interesting because the Bible doesn't say too much about him. There's only two centurions mentioned. One is a man who wanted his daughter healed. And this centurion is the man who oversaw the brutality of the crucifixion. So I want to take a few moments and describe what this man was like. Some things that we can know, some things from scriptures, some things we find out from historical context. And so we're going to try to build a picture of what this man was and who this man was and why this was important for us today. Because obviously we're not at the cross. We did not live back then. But it's interesting to see what an eyewitness who was not searching for God. This man was not looking for something from Jesus. He was there to do a job, a brutal job. And I was trying to do some research about vocations that would be similar to what this man's job was. We know that he was a Roman centurion. We know that much. We know that a centurion of his stature was someone that would have overseen around 100 men. We know that this was a brutal and violent occupation. And there is no job description that fully fits what he did today. If you put together like a corrections officer and a SWAT team member and a sniper in the army, put all these things together and you still will not have the brutality of lifestyle that this man lived. And for him to be a commander in the Roman army meant something. It meant that he had built his reputation on a lifestyle of overseeing people being executed. And so I can imagine that this man on that day was not looking to Jesus the way that Nicodemus went to see Jesus. He wasn't looking to Jesus the way that all the disciples were looking at Jesus. And yet we find him at the cross on that hill called Golgotha on the day of Jesus' death. So I'd like to just take, some of it is surmising and some of it is fact. But we know that for a centurion, death was routine. It wasn't something that he would have been excited about or nervous about or even thought about. It was part of what he did. So for this centurion, this was 3 more executions on a Friday. I find it interesting that by the afternoon, this man, who I can't imagine felt anything in the same thing that he had done many, many times. But by that afternoon, that man, that hardened Roman official, whose life consisted of overseeing, managing violence, by that afternoon, he was saying, that man is innocent. That man is the Son of God. So let's take a look at a little bit of things that would get us to that conclusion. 4 powerful circumstances that I've picked out that I think shaped the centurion's faith. The first one, let me go back, sorry. The way that Jesus suffered. We're going to look at 4 things that he observed and experienced and heard and maybe even felt. This man who probably wasn't used to feeling anything. The first one we're going to say is the way that Jesus suffered, the manner in which he saw this person that was being taken to be not just crucified, but on trial. What did he observe in Jesus? Let's look at the scriptures. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the governor's residence gathered the whole company around him. Now, the company was around 800 men, so that would have been a huge, huge place. They stripped him, dressed him in a scarlet robe. They twisted together a crown of thorns, put it on his head, placed a staff in his right hand. They knelt down before him and mocked him. Now, this centurion would have been overseeing all of these happenings. He was in charge. The buck stopped with him. Now, we don't know if he was actually participating in the mocking and the spitting. I kind of doubt that he was, but he was present. He was giving his consent for these things to happen. "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him. They took his staff and kept hitting him on the head. Now, has anybody bonked your head? You know, you're bending down to tie your shoe and you get up and you bump your head on something that you didn't expect, and it really hurts. And for the first few seconds, I instantly get angry. I'm looking around like, who can I blame for this thing who put this countertop here in the middle of I hit it, and it really, really hurts. And I was reading this, and I thought, man, they kept hitting him over and over, and I just bonk myself, just tap myself on something, and it is so painful. And to think about them hitting him over and over again, for some reason, that really struck me. Pardon the expression. Okay. After they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe, put his own clothes on him, and led him away to crucify him. Now, crucifixion, as we all know from the scripture, it's meant to be horrific. It wasn't meant to be like a slap on the wrist to people watching, like, now see, this happens to you. No, it was meant to humiliate and shame and be incredibly painful. And normally, the centurion, when he would see people crucified, he would hear cursing, screaming, and begging, and crying, and all of these things as the person is dying. That's what he would normally have seen. But with Jesus, he observed none of that. Of the hundreds of deaths that he had overseen, supervised, gave witness to, this man was different. The way Jesus suffered was different to a man who was hardened to everything. You know, if you have gotten to the place where seeing death, participating in death, okaying death does not affect you, your heart is hardened. And this man, because he was part of the Roman structure of military, that's what he was, who he was. And he saw Jesus not resisting. He saw Jesus silent before Pilate, silent before Herod. They're mocking him, saying, if you really are who you say you are, then get down off the cross. Stop this from happening. And Jesus was silent. I can imagine all the hundreds of men that he has seen who did not go quietly to their death. But something about the way Jesus suffered got this man's attention. The centurion who stood there in front of Jesus. And the reason I'm going to say some of the things I'm going to say is because he was there, close enough to hear the exchanges with the other prisoner, the exchanges with the apostle, with John, the disciple. He said, surely this man was the Son of God. The way that Jesus suffered was different. The way that Jesus loved. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now, I don't know about you, but when someone wrongs me, the first thing I'm not thinking is, Teresa, forgive me. I forgive you. Will you forgive? That's not the first thing I think of. Although, Teresa, you've never wronged me. I'm just picking you because you have that beautiful pink T-shirt on. It caught my attention. But Jesus noticed the way this man loved, the way he showed love and concern. He noticed the concern where Jesus turns to his mother just a few feet away and said, John, take care of my mother. Now, mother, behold your son. He would have heard that exchange because he was there. He would have heard Jesus talking to the other thief. Remember the one thief was taunting. It's like, yeah, if you save yourself. And the other man's like, man, shut up. We deserve to be here. The things I have done, I deserve what I'm getting. But this man has done nothing to deserve this. And Jesus said, today, you will be with me in paradise. The centurion's listening. He's watching him suffer. He's listening to him pour love on people, not only that were there wanting to be with Jesus, but also the people that were still mocking. The spit isn't dry on Jesus' face. And he's saying, forgive them. They don't understand what they've done. So please don't hold it against them, God. And this hardened, battle-tested commander of brutal men was listening and watching. And he had never seen anything like this before. Okay, do tears. I can't see. Boop, 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 boop. Father, forgive her because she doesn't know how to use the Okay. This is one of my favorite ones. The way that heaven and earth responded to the death of Jesus. Let's see what it says. But Jesus cried out with a loud voice and gave up his spirit. Now, we're going to come back to that in just a second. Suddenly, the curtain of the sanctuary was torn in two from the top to the bottom. That is God saying, this is it, people. This is it. This is what's been prophesied for centuries. I am tearing the distance between me and you. It starts with me. It started from the top. It was torn from the top. Normally, if we're tearing something, we rip it from the bottom all the way up. But God said, no, this is me. Make no mistake. This is me reaching down to you. And so the veil between the holy place and the people was ripped from God all the way down to man. That was symbolic as well as a reality of what's happening in the spiritual world. Okay, it was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth quaked and the rocks were split. Now, has anyone here ever been, so those of you who live in other states, ever experienced an earthquake? Some of you might have. Beth has, beautiful woman back there has. I imagine it's very scary. I can only imagine because I can imagine I know what it's like when hurricanes come. You know, when nature, or as my father would always say, creation is so powerful, there is nothing you can do to stop it. There's nothing you can do to change it. We can't stop a hurricane. We can just barely say, okay, the one's coming in 2 weeks or next week or next month. But something like an earthquake, I mean, there's nothing you can do. The ground shakes beneath your feet, and you're just hanging on for dear life because you don't know, is it going to stop? Is the ground going to open up? What? So this is happening. The rocks were split. The tombs were also opened. And many of this next part is wild, people. The bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised, and they came out of the tombs. Now, this part happens after the resurrection. So the centurion didn't see the people walking around the city, going into the city. He didn't see that, but he did see the rocks split and the tombs open. And they entered the holy city and appeared to many people. Wow. When the centurion and those with him who were keeping watch over Jesus saw the earthquake and the things that had happened, they were terrified. And they said, truly, this man was the Son of God. Man. Creation was violently reacting to seeing its creator killed. That's what was happening. The creator was killed, and the creation was reacting in a violent way. You know how in the Psalms and different places it says, if we don't cry out, the rocks are going to cry out. You know, in the other places in Psalms it says the trees clap their hands. I know that this is symbolic and poetic language, but the reality behind those words are that God's creation is alive and it is testifying to who God is and what he's done for us. And this is what's happening here. And the centurion's watching this, and I'm sure he was frightened because this is something that he had never, of all the things he's seen, of all the things he's experienced, of all the things he's heard, this had never before been experienced and felt by him. It says they were afraid. It says they were terrified. Truly, this man was the Son of God. The way Jesus died is the last thing we're going to look at and think about for just a moment. So we saw how he suffered, how when he was treated, not just unjustly, but brutally, how he responded. We saw him on the cross, heard the words that he spoke, the compassion that he had for his mother and the thief. And now the centurion's going to watch the final act of Jesus' life in this way on earth. It says, but Jesus cried out with a loud voice and gave up his spirit. Now, this is important for a reason. When there are like three phases of crucifixion, and the centurion would have known that. The phases are, first you're exhausted. You're hanging there. Exhaustion sets in. Then asphyxiation, where you can no longer get your breath. You can no longer push yourself up to take a breath. And then after that is the final gasp, they called it. The final gasp. But if you look here, it says, Jesus cried out with a loud voice. That would have been a physical impossibility. To cry out with a loud voice moments before you pass, that would have gotten his attention. He would never have heard someone cry out with a loud voice at this part of the process. He would have heard it in the beginning because there would have been cursing and screaming and yelling and begging and pleading. But at this point, he heard Jesus say in a loud voice, "It is finished. I've done what I came to do." The veil was torn from heaven to earth because now God can meet with people because of the death of my son. Looky here. Jesus died with authority, and this man who was under authority recognized authority. You know, for that saying, game recognizes game. That's what's happening here. He's a man under authority. He is told, he's given orders, and he obeys them. He gives orders to men, and those men obey him. And he recognized something in Jesus when Jesus, with a loud, supernatural voice, said, "It is finished." And it says, he what? He gave up his spirit. He didn't just fade into nothingness because he died. It was a choice. It is finished. I release my spirit. And that centurion recognized that's a man with authority. Surely this was the Son of God. And I find it so interesting that the very system, the Roman Empire, who crucified Jesus, were the first ones to declare his identity. This Roman citizen said this was the Son of God. I just find that so amazing. Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are you, because you are believing this morning and you didn't see what that centurion saw. And for a moment I thought, why am I taking the time to talk to Christians, for the most part here, about an act that happened to someone that didn't care about God? And I thought, we all know people that have no interest in God, that don't even know if God exists and really don't seem all that concerned if he does or not. But then I thought, there are some days when I'm not really different from the centurion. I'll stand back and I'll watch. I find it interesting that the centurion, when he confessed, that man is innocent, that is the Son of God, he probably still had blood on his hands. He wasn't saying, well, I need to clean myself up. I need to do something. He's simply where he was based on what he had experienced and heard. And I don't know if his heart was moved or it was simply intellectual, but because of what he witnessed, he had to acknowledge that was God's Son, that he was the Son of God. And so sometimes I feel like we get kind of like cross adjacent, like we're watching the cross. We know the language of the cross, but yet we're still watching. Something is holding us back from saying, Lord, what do I need to do? I need to acknowledge you today as the Son of God. I need to acknowledge that. Because when he noticed these things about Jesus, it wasn't just like, wow, that was a great man. No, he acknowledged the truth about Jesus, who he was. And when I stand and watch, like Pastor Aslan had said, and Matt had said, and Ben, that we've just come back from a conference, and there was so much good teaching and so much good worship and all these things that make us feel what we want to feel. And yet on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, I stand back and I watch. Because I know the story. And some of us, we're figuratively now, our lipstick is still smeared from last night. The plans that we did last night, we can't tell anybody about because in the light of day, we're ashamed. We still smell like that skunk smell. You know what that means? We're standing there in all of this. God sees. And he still accepted the centurion's adoration. He still accepted. And sometimes, especially if we've been Christians for a while, it's like, since I know better, like what Ben was saying, since I know better, then I'm going to just wait until I don't feel so guilty anymore, and then I'm going to go to Jesus. I'm going to wait till the morning when I feel more like I deserve to go into his presence. But the centurion and all of the guts and the blood and the pain and the smells, all of what he must have experienced and the terror and the fear, he acknowledged, you are the Son of God. So I just want to challenge you and encourage you. Maybe you think, well, my job is holding me back I can't do anything with this job I've got. I mean, this relationship I'm in, or this. What is anything stopping you from acknowledging, I bow, you are sovereign. You've saved me, and I acknowledge that. Lord, forgive me. I'm going to have Ben and the band come up. But I want to encourage you. It was the darkest moment in human history when Jesus died. I know there have been other things that have happened throughout history that were dark, dark things. But this moment when Jesus died on that hill was the darkest moment in human history. Because that fact allowed God, when Jesus died, to tear that veil. But in that dark moment, that's when the centurion saw the clearest. That was the moment in the darkness and the scaredness and the shaking and tombs opening. That's when he saw clearly. And so sometimes we go through things and we think, Lord, I'm struggling. This is such a dark season in my life. This is such a dark time. I'll never get through it. Well, you will. But in that dark time, God is still there. God still wants to be. He is still God in your life. Can we just say, you are the Son of God. In the middle of my fear, in the middle of my sin, in the middle of my oppression, in the middle of my shame, in the middle of my disappointment. Some people think, well, I didn't have the life of the centurion, but I've had a horrible. My experiences have taught me that he can't be trusted. Jesus. Whether you're sitting here this morning just disappointed or ashamed of what you did last night, last week, or you think, oh, my job's keeping me from my husband, my wife, I can't. This is the morning to give it to the Lord. Say, Lord, I acknowledge you. You are bigger than the problem I have. You are bigger than what I'm placing high above you. I want to acknowledge you this morning. You are the Son of God, and you are bigger than what I've placed as an idol in my life. You are bigger. So, Father, we just come against shame. We rebuke disappointment. Father, the experiences that have shaped us, that would lead us away from trusting you and believing you and honoring who you are. We repent. We believe once again. We believe that you are the Son of God once again. We trust you with our jobs. We trust you with our children. We trust you with our circumstances, with our finances, with that coworker that we struggle with that image problem that we have in our mind, with depression, with addiction. Father, we say you are the Son of God. We declare that even as we stand in situations that we don't see fixed yet, but we declare, I cannot deny the truth. You are the Son of God, and you are going to move in this situation. You're going to move in my marriage. You're going to move in my finances. You're going to move in this relationship. You're going to move in this addiction. And we're going to come out of our tombs. We're going to walk out of our graves because we are declaring you are the Son of the living God. If you have a friend, if you have an acquaintance, if you have someone that you think, man, they are so far. They don't care about God. They're not interested in God. They're just numb. I don't think I just don't see a way that they're going to ever come to Jesus. I'm so thankful it doesn't depend on me. I'm thankful it doesn't depend on you. Just believe.